off under the power of the Canada Orenda 14 engine. Is the Canadair CL13B Sabre MK.6. This Canadian-built Sabre joining us for a couple of months this summer, notching up its third Duxford appearance of the season at this Battle of Britain Airshow. It comes to us from Mistral Warbirds, based at Avignon, Comont. In comes the Sabre. What an aircraft this was when it first appeared in its first flight in October 1947. It's been suggested that the test pilot, North American Aviation, George Welch, broke the sound barrier in the very first XP-86 prototype on the date of its maiden flight, 13 days before Chuck Yeager flew supersonic for the first time in the Bell X-1. Well, whatever the truth of that, the fourth production F-86 Sabre went on to break the outright world airspeed record in September 1948, reaching 570 miles an hour. What resulted from development work by North American became one of the great jet fighters of all time. It was intended to defend American territory from Soviet bombers, but when the communist side in the Korean War started operations with the swept-wing Mikoyan MiG-15, that changed. A detachment was sent to Korea by the 4th Fighter Wing in 1950. MK.6 was superior in terms of its speed, its rate of climb and its service ceiling, the Sabre pilots tended to have greater combat experience, often being seasoned Second World War fighter pilots. Saying of the time was, if it smokes, it's friendly, because quite a useful identifier between the two swept-wing jets that I mentioned, the Sabre and the MiG-15, was that the General Electric J47 engine on the early Sabres was very smoky. Now, the smoke trail behind this one is not... It's actually a smoke generator, because this is a Canadair Sabre, as I mentioned, with the Canada Orenda engine. And one of the key differences, apart from this being a far more modern engine than those that powered the early American-built Sabres, is the fact that it doesn't chuck out such a nasty trail of black smoke. Measure before the Hawker Hunter came along. The Sabre was by Mr. Warbirds since 2019 from Havilland in France. Frederic Accavi maintains the aeroplane himself, and he was flying it for us today. It's lovely to have Fred back at Duxford. He will several of the Flying Legends shows, and his Fury and the Mustang Moonbeam Swine that we saw on the programme earlier. Been appearing for the first time in his Sabre here this summer. But now it comes to that time. We go back here to a slightly earlier generation of jet, and one where the layout of the airframe was very much dictated by the engine technology available at the time. This is a single engine. Unlike the twin engine, what the Meteor and Messerschmitt E262 that fought during the Second World War, though I should say they're never actually fought each other. And in order to minimise loss of thrust from having just a single jet engine, you have an associated twin-boost layout in order to treat the jet pipe. That engine is developed by Frank Britain to have an engagement function for the house Well, unlike the Meteor, the Vampire never saw any wartime service. Come peacetime, this aeroplane had a very important part to play in a number of significant aviation firsts. I suppose the most famous of them was on the 3rd of December 1945 when Captain Eric Winkelbrown, the legendary naval test pilot, made the first ever takeoff and landing aboard an aircraft carrier in a jet using a Mark I Vampire on HMS Ocean. The RAF's first jet aerobatic team, founded by the Odeon Wing in 1948. They used this trained equivalent formation aerobatics. The aircraft proved itself very versatile. It was developed into a fighter bomber, the early Vampires having been solely day fighters, and there were successive parts of that, like this FB.6. The RAF used some of these. Very successful, the Vampire, on the export market. And 31 nations used them of one type or another. They were built under license in Australia, in France, in Italy, and in Switzerland. And what we've got here is an ex-Swiss Air Force Vampire. As I say, it's owned by the Norwegian Air Force Historical Squadron. The reason for that being that the Norwegians had 62 Vampires, Norway's first jet, used for air defence, ground attack, and training duties. How it's got number 3 squadron markings on one side. That squadron converted to the Vampire Mark I in 1948 while it was stationed in Germany. To starboard are the markings of number 72 squadron, which was stationed at RAF Odium in Hampshire, which was part of that pioneering transatlantic visit in 1948. And both of those RAF squadrons markings are on this Vampire.